These are the luckiest people who survived the impossible.
Stephen McCormack. Stephen, an experienced truck driver from New Zealand, was working on his truck. He was positioned between the truck's bumper and the trailer when something crazy happened. He slipped and fell, but something felt off. He didn't feel just regular pain. He felt his body inflating like a balloon, nearly doubling in size. His colleagues and his son rushed to help him, quickly realizing what had—
You know what's crazy is when he pulled up the picture of him in the beginning, I was about to say, yo, that dude is jacked. But no, he's like turning into Violet from Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. I shouldn't be making jokes, so that this sounds terrible. What is even going on?
Stephen had fallen onto the brass valve that supplies compressed air to the truck's brakes. The valve punctured his bum.
Oh! I'm sorry, I need a minute here. So he fell and then it I guess these really are the luckiest people ever, huh? What? Nah, this is actually insane.
Pressurized air into his body. They immediately shut off the air supply, laid him on the ground, and called an ambulance.
So he's just a balloon?
Both emergency vehicles in the area were occupied, forcing him to wait in that state for an entire hour. When he finally arrived at the hospital, doctors understood the severity of his condition. The air had separated fat tissue from muscle, filling his abdomen, chest, and even the spaces around his lungs, heart, and behind his eyelids. To help him breathe, doctors inserted a tube through his ribs and into his lungs. As for the trapped air, it had to be expelled naturally through farts.
Oh my God, I don't want to laugh because like it's tragic, but at the same time, how can you not? I mean, bro, this can't be real, bro. He had to fart it out, all of the gas. Also, how hard did he fall to where like he was stuck there? He didn't say like he broke any bones or like got knocked unconscious. He just fell and it, you know, something went and then his reaction was not, get that out of me. Oh God, bro just took it.
Process that took 3 days. Stephen made a full recovery, and doctors later determined that if the valve had punctured another part of his body, it could have damaged a blood vessel, and he would have died.
That actually I knew. I thought like once I learned that he got oxygen in his body, I thought he was just gonna die like instantly. I know I exaggerate a lot of things. That's the craziest story I've ever heard. Hands down. Bro had to fart for 3 straight days to save himself. If it were me, I probably could have made it one day, but kudos to him for pushing through it, literally.
Joan Murray. Joan Murray was an experienced skydiver, having already completed 35 jumps. It was supposed to be just another routine dive, and as she plummeted at 120 miles per hour, she attempted to deploy her parachute. I say attempted because it didn't open.
See, here's my thing with this sort of stuff. I get if you want to do it like once or twice, maybe 3 times, because the adrenaline part of it, I'm sure, is like unlike anything else. But eventually, something could definitely go wrong. And jumping 35 times, is it like you did it. You did it already so many times. Are you even still getting that adrenaline rush? Is it worth it anymore at that point? You know what I'm saying? Like maybe the first couple times, it's like, oh my God, I'm willing to risk my life jumping out of this airplane for the incredible rush I'm about to get for the views and everything. Doing it 35 times though, I'm not saying anybody deserves anything. You know, obviously she doesn't deserve to go through what she's about to go through, but at some point, things are gonna go wrong.
For multiple tries, she reached for her reserve parachute, which, to her relief, deployed successfully. However, another problem quickly arose. She began spinning uncontrollably, causing the parachute's cords to tangle into a knot, rendering it useless. She crashed into the ground at 80 miles per hour, and upon impact, she heard a loud crack before losing consciousness. Joan fell into a coma and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors performed multiple complex reconstructive surgeries and blood transfusions. The entire right side of her body was crushed, yet incredibly, 2 weeks later, she woke up from the coma and made a full recovery. The reason she survived was just crazy. By pure chance, she landed directly on a fire ant nest, disturbing the venomous ants. In response, they came out of their nests and swarmed her body, stinging and biting her over 200 times. Fire ant venom, known as solanopsin, stimulates the nervous system. The overwhelming amount of it that was injected into her body kept her heart beating until paramedics arrived, saving her life.
That's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, what was lucky about the first story? Is it the thing went in his bum instead of puncturing his leg? This is a trillion times luckier. Although it is also very unlucky at the same time that neither of her parachutes worked. So I guess in order to get super lucky, you have to be very unlucky first. But yeah, to land on top of a fire ant's nest is like 1 in a trillion probably.
Margaret Margaret was a young Canadian woman who had just married her husband, Herbert, in 1915. To celebrate, they decided to take a trip and boarded the RMS Lusitania in New York City, bound for Liverpool. They were enjoying their trip, having a routine dinner on the ship, when suddenly they heard a loud boom. The ship had been torpedoed by a German submarine.
What?
Herbert immediately escorted his wife Margaret to a lifeboat, where she was joined by 3 other women and a baby. However, as she looked up, she saw the ship's massive smokestacks above them, and she feared they might collapse onto their lifeboat. In a moment of panic, she climbed back up the stairs to the deck, while Herbert, believing she was safe, boarded another lifeboat with other passengers. As the Lusitania rapidly sank, Margaret tried to swim away from the wreckage, but her efforts were in vain. A whirlpool formed as the ship submerged, pulling her and 2 other men into one of the smokestacks. Miraculously, a sudden explosion from below blasted her back to the surface, where she was spotted and rescued by a nearby lifeboat. As she looked around, she saw Herbert in another lifeboat crying, believing she had died.
I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty silly of her to not stay in the first lifeboat. Like, what was her plan after? Like, the ship's going down, she gets in a lifeboat. One of the lucky people, by the way, to get in a lifeboat, because in a lot of those situations, there's not enough lifeboats for everybody there. Or, you know, some of the lifeboats get damaged and there's only a certain amount left. The fact that she got onto a lifeboat is lucky. And then out of nowhere, she gets off of the lifeboat, back onto the sinking ship, the ship that is sinking. There's nowhere forward if you're staying on the ship. No matter what happens, you're going down. So why not just stay on the lifeboat? And there was no end game of going back onto the ship. You were doomed either way. At least on the lifeboat, you had a chance. That's crazy. That's not even like an unfortunate one to me, because she literally chose that. She chose to get back on the boat that it was sinking, going down. All right, next up we have Julie McSorley.
Julie McSorley and Liz Cottrell were kayaking in San Luis Obispo, California, drawn by a spectacular event, humpback whales feeding on fish in the bay. There were lots of tourists on their boats and kayaks watching the whole thing. And even though whale watching is a popular activity, it comes with important safety precautions. Experts recommend staying at least 300 feet away from the feeding zone to avoid dangerous encounters. Unfortunately, Julie and Liz misjudged the distance. A tightly packed swarm of fish, known as a bait ball, suddenly moved alarmingly close to them.
Oh, they're about to get gobbled up.
To notice. Their presence had also caught the attention of a humpback whale. Before they had time to react, the whale lunged forward to swallow the fish, but in the process, it also scooped up Julie and Liz. Trapped inside its massive mouth, they probably thought that they were about to be swallowed whole. After all, humpback whales can grow up to 56 feet long, a huge size from a human perspective.
Oh my God.
However, despite their enormous mouths, humpback whales have relatively small throats, only about the size of a human fist and capable of stretching to just 15 inches in diameter. They also lack teeth, meaning the 2 women weren't crushed. Luckily, a whale's natural instinct is to spit out anything that isn't fish, and that's exactly what happened. Moments later, Julie and Liz were spat out from the whale's mouth and surfaced unharmed.
I feel like even in that case, though, it's still very dangerous. Like, obviously, humans can't hold their breath that long. If you get swallowed by a whale, the whale would need to spit you out relatively quickly before you start drowning. And a lot of times when you're panicking like that, it's not easy to hold your breath. Like, if I held my breath and I didn't move, I can maybe hold my breath for like 2 minutes max. But in times of panic, like if I'm getting swallowed by a whale and I don't even have time to like really breathe in deep, and also I'm probably struggling in there, kicking, screaming, I might not be able to hold my breath for 20 seconds. Next up, we have Matthew Lowe.
Matthew was heading to his factory for a routine shift, just like any other day. Upon arriving, he immediately got to work. As he walked past an automated conveyor belt, he suddenly felt his overalls snag on something. Unfortunately, it was the conveyor itself. Before he could react, he was pulled onto the belt and dragged toward a 5-inch opening. Within seconds, his entire body was forced through the narrow tunnel. He could hear the cracks of his bones as the machine spat him out on the other side. Miraculously, he remained conscious. Matthew's agonizing screams alerted his coworkers, who rushed to the scene. What they saw was horrifying. His back was broken in 2 places, his pelvis, ribs, and hips were nearly completely crushed, and his abdomen was severely torn. He was rushed to the hospital, but doctors had little hope for his survival.
He said 5 inches. No, that can't be real. This is about 5 inches. Don't ask me how I know that. That's not even one of my shoulders. He must have been the skinniest man of all time to fit through that. But I guess he's gonna survive. That's insane.
However, against all odds, Matthew survived. After 6 surgeries and a month in the hospital, he slowly began to recover. 18 months later, he made a full recovery and even returned to work.
I have an irrational fear of escalators, but I had a friend of mine, his shoelaces were untied and they got stuck in the escalator. And when they made it to the top of the escalator, he couldn't get his foot off of the stair and it snapped his ankle and his foot. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like he could have just ripped his clothes off, no? I mean, I'm sure everything happened so fast for him and next thing he knew, like he was inside of a 5-inch tube, but I'm surprised he wasn't able to like rip his clothes off. And I'm not even trying to be like sus about it. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Taiba, a young Indian girl, went out for a walk when she came across a construction site. Intrigued, she decided to explore the area. The site was filled with debris and half-finished structures, making it extremely risky to navigate, especially without proper equipment or experience. As she walked through the site, she tripped and fell neck-first onto a long metal rod protruding from the brick. Bystanders witnessed the horrifying scene and immediately called for an ambulance. When Taiba arrived at the hospital, doctors were left stunned. Miraculously, the rod had missed all vital nerves and blood vessels in her head. After a 35-minute surgery, doctors successfully removed the rod. Amazingly, she was discharged just 3 days later. Had she fallen just a few inches further forward, she would have died.
That's insane, actually. She just had a pipe sticking through her entire face, but she was good. She was chill, no problem. Next, we have Frane Selak.
Frane Selak is an elderly music teacher from Croatia, and he's both the luckiest and unluckiest man on earth. His first crazy experience happened in 1962 when he was on a train. A fault in the tracks caused the train to derail and plunge into the freezing river below. Most passengers either died in the crash or drowned in the submerged train, but Frane miraculously survived with only a broken arm and managed to swim to shore. In 1963, just a year after the train incident, he was on a small plane when, mid-flight, both engines failed. As the aircraft went into a free fall, a malfunctioning door blew open, yanking Frane out of the plane. Without a parachute, he must have thought he was going to die. The plane crashed into a hill, killing all 19 passengers on board. However, Frane survived by landing on a haystack, escaping with only minor injuries. 2 years later, in 1965, he was traveling on a bus that was crossing a bridge. The icy conditions caused the bus's wheels to lock up, sending the vehicle crashing through the safety barrier and into the valley below. 4 passengers lost their lives, yet Frane survived once again. After multiple accidents involving...
At this point in his life, he must genuinely think he's invincible. Like he can't die. Just insane what he's been through. That's ridiculous.
Public transportation, he decided to rely on his own car, only to find that it wasn't any safer. In 1970, while driving, his engine suddenly burst into flames. Miraculously, he managed to jump out in time and survived. But this wasn't his only brush with fire. 3 years later, in 1973, while driving another car, the fuel pump ruptured, causing yet another fire. This time, the flames were blown directly toward him through the air vents. Despite suffering burns, he once again managed to escape. As if that weren't enough, in 1975, he survived being hit by a bus. Then, just a year later, he had another near-death experience.
It just keeps going! Somebody wants this man dead. There's no way that this is all just unlucky and coincidental. Somebody is out to get this man, and he is just somehow surviving by the skin of his teeth.
When his car fell off a mountain road, plummeting 300 feet after a careless driver forced him off the road. The car exploded upon impact, but Frane managed to survive by jumping out of the vehicle's window mid-fall and landing on a tree. And by the way, he won the lottery in 2003.
No, I actually don't believe that. Someone's gonna have to look that up and then comment down below if this is actually real. All the other ones I believe, I don't believe this guy's a real person. I don't believe that. There's no way. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed today's video and want to watch more, make sure to leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and click right here.